Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up from the Heritage Foundation, we'll be speaking to not Jerry Connolly. I'll tell you about Jerry Connolly in a second. We're going to speak to Kevin Roberts. Kevin Roberts, indeed, the president of the Heritage Foundation at 5:30. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Actually, yes, Jerry Connolly, the waddling congressman from the 11th Congressional District, this week he is calling for, by his own press release, for the Trump Arlington Cemetery report to be made public. He's demanding it. He thinks that some sort of Biden administration report is going to reveal that Trump is a bad man, and he wants everybody to know about it. Of course, Trump was the decent man this week, going to Arlington at the invitation of the Gold Star families to honor our war wounded, our war fallen there at Arlington. Here to discuss all of this and more, I want to bring in Mike Van Meter. He's the Republican candidate running in Virginia's 11th District against Jerry Connolly. Mike, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, thanks. I was getting excited there. I thought you were going to be having Jerry Connolly on, and I thought, well, finally somebody's found him.
Yeah, no, not today. Oh, not maybe tomorrow. We'll see. We'll keep asking. So Mike, let me first set up your bio for everybody who doesn't know. You are a military veteran. You're a guy who's worked in the FBI as well. Give people a sense of who you are, and because I think it'll add a lot to this conversation.
Yeah, so and thanks for having me on the show. I was in the Navy for 8 years. I was a helicopter pilot, and then after I left the Navy, I was a DC police officer for 3 years, and then I went into the FBI for just under 21 years. Right. And then after that, when I retired, I went back to school, got another degree, and became a drug and alcohol counselor, which I do at a major hospital here in Northern Virginia. So I've served my nation ever since I was 19 years old to now. So that's my background.
Yeah, and so this week in the center of the news is this kerfuffle apparently at the Arlington National Cemetery. Now, it started with very little media coverage of President Trump's very decent and reverent presence alongside those Gold Star families this week. But since then, because the Biden administration, I guess, was embarrassed by that, they've tried to turn it into something scandalous. They're claiming that President Trump had a photographer and somebody got physical with Arlington National Cemetery staff, and that led to this, which is that Jerry Connolly is saying that whatever report Arlington National Cemetery has on this subject needs to be released. What do you think of his demand here?
Well, what I think of this is, number one, as you mentioned, the families asked for President Trump to be there. They did not. In fact, my understanding is they specifically asked that Biden and Harris and the rest of the Democrats not be there. That's the first thing I heard all along. Second of all, it's kind of curious that several days went by before this was even brought up, and no one really knows what he's talking about, because I did my own little investigation yesterday, and I called around to people that I know for a fact were there. And this includes people that were part of security, and they said that no one heard of any incident occurring other than there apparently was a person that was heckling President Trump when he was there, and they were removed from the situation, and then everyone moved on. And everybody in the security detail was surprised that this was even an issue. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'd heard about.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'll just add what we know here, which is that whatever occurred, and even the Trump campaign is saying that something occurred. In fact, they alluded, I think, earlier this week, that maybe somebody was having some sort of mental episode when they tried to stop this photographer. But something occurred, but it was out of sight of the families. That's what I know, because they were gathering at Section 60, and this photographer was arriving. And Arlington officials began lunging in front of the camera to try and stop it from coming in after this was all agreed upon well in advance. So at every stage, it looks like Biden administration officials were trying to turn a very simple, solemn event with a former president of the United States into something chaotic, because they just didn't like the fact that it was being covered.
Yeah, and also let me just add a few other little nuggets to this. That the security people that I spoke to said that the families specifically asked that photos be taken of them with the president and the event.
Yeah.
And in fact, they were taking pictures with their own cameras, that this was something that they'd asked for. Furthermore, this notion that pictures are not taken at Arlington National Cemetery, they are taken at Arlington National Cemetery. After all, we have pictures of presidents, we have pictures of wreaths being laid, and these are things that they asked for. Also, I want to address this.
One other thing on what you just said. We have a literal campaign ad from Joe Biden in 2020 shot at Arlington National Cemetery. He has photos of him at Arlington in the ad. So this idea that, oh my goodness, I can't believe that anybody would ever include any of this imagery in anything politically involved. The current president of the United States did that in 2020.
Right. And this notion that this was strictly for political purposes, as opposed to trying to be a solemn ceremony where President Trump could honor the families at their request. And I keep on emphasizing that. As a candidate in Northern Virginia, afterwards, I actually started calling around asking why none of the candidates, the Republican candidates, were notified that the president was in town. And what I was told repeatedly was that this was the president wanted this was low key, that this was something that the president wanted to, at the request of the family, spend time with them. He did not want it to be an event. He did not want to publicize it. And that's why candidates such as myself were not included in this. It was not meant to be a political statement. It was something that he wanted to do to honor the families at their request. Now, when it comes to Jerry Connolly, I want to remind everyone, this is the man that called for a prison to be renamed in Florida after Donald Trump. And this is also a man that supported a bill to reduce protection, on President Donald Trump. He is obsessed. Jerry Connolly is obsessed with Donald Trump. And this is where he spends his time. He's not spending his time working on the people for Northern Virginia. He spends more money. He is more concerned with spending money overseas rather than helping people here. He needs to go. He has Trump derangement syndrome. And I'm praying that we defeat this man and remove him from office on November 5th, because he has to go. President Trump, I'm a veteran, and I can tell you that the veterans that I know and people who are active duty military despise Joe Biden. They despise Kamala Harris. And under no circumstances should Kamala Harris be commander in chief. And Jerry Connolly does not have a loved one on active duty military. I do. And the thought of her being the commander in chief, or Tim Walz being anywhere near the White House, is just frightening to all of us. This is a critical election that we must win, and every single conservative needs to come out on November 5th and ensure that all of these people are removed from office.
Well, you just brought up an issue, I think, that really illuminates kind of who Jerry Connolly is. Here's a guy who's in Congress, and the legislation he's presenting is to rename prisons after Donald Trump because he thinks that it would be A, funny, I guess, and B, he's trying to express, using federal resources, that he thinks that Trump himself should be in jail. This is the kind of behavior we're getting out of the Democrat congressman in your district, in the 11th district. And that's just a guy who wants to abuse his power. He's saying it out loud, Mike Van Meter. He's putting his name on legislation to that effect.
Absolutely. And this needs to be highlighted. It really does. And this is something that the American people need to understand, that if you want to get to the bottom of what happened with Russia collusion, if you want to know what's going on with any reports that the FBI has done, if you want to know what's on Hunter Biden's laptop, go down the litany of investigations that have been used to go after political enemies. January 6th, even. I mean, it's a long list of investigations that need to be done. If Democrats maintain power, you can forget ever getting to the bottom of this. But I can assure you, Vince, that if I get elected, we are going to get to the bottom of this, because, I really, the FBI, where I spent much of my adult life in, we need an FBI, and it needs to be revamped. It needs to be, we need to correct what's been going on, because we need these agencies. We need to restore the trust, and we will do that. Donald Trump will do that, and he'll do that with the support of people like me and others. But if they stay in office, you can forget. We're done. We're done.
Well, in other words, like, if you're a government official, if you're an elected official, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do here? The plan should be to fix the FBI, not to give them a brand new sparkly building as some sort of reward for all of their great work.
Correct.
Yeah.
That absolutely. That getting a new building is on the least, the lowest end of the priority list for me as far as the FBI is concerned. We need to clean house over there, and we need to get them refocused on their mission. We need to get the Secret Service refocused on their mission. We need to get the Department of Defense refocused on their mission. They have one purpose and one purpose only, and that's what they need to be focused on. We need to get rid of these DEI programs. We need to get rid of all of the political correctness, and that includes over at the agency, and we're going to do that. And they, by the way, that's why they fight so hard to keep Donald Trump out of the White House, because they know this is coming. They know that it's going to be a new sheriff in town, and they're going to get people in there that are going to get these agencies focused on what they need to. And they need to do this because the world is a dangerous place right now. We are not ready for what's coming towards us. We're not ready at all. And there are many of us that recognize this. And I'm very proud to be serving or running, rather, in this election with a slate of veterans. We have a number of them here in Virginia, and I'm proud to be serving with these folks because we are people that have been there. We've been on the receiving end of orders that come from a commander-in-chief.
Yep.
And I just shudder at the thought of Harris being in office. I just shudder at that thought.
Let me. So I want to get your sense, almost as a reporter here on the state of politics in your region of Virginia, because this is the 11th district, and just to give people a mental image, that's essentially west and south of the Beltway. So wherever the Beltway kisses, all of that land outside of the Beltway in Virginia, a lot of it is the 11th district. And so in that area, as you go and you meet voters, you knock on doors, Mike Van Meter. Give us a sense of the temperature. What are you detecting as you have these conversations?
Oh, it's funny. I really get a sense that people are tired. They're tired of this, but they won't say it out loud, because I'll go and I'll knock on the doors and they'll say, "Hey, we're behind you. We're going to support you." All right. What do you want to sign? Can I put a sign up in your yard? Oh no, absolutely not. You're not going to put a sign up because these people will destroy our house. They will kill our cars. Just let that sink in for a minute. That should tell you everything you need to know about the left.
Can I tell you? I was talking to Chris Plant in the hallway the other day about this, and he had heard this is a great idea. That if you put up one of those yard signs, it's a good way to make sure that people who share your views will probably move into your neighborhood. Like when they're cruising for homes, and they're like, "Should we buy that house?" They're like, "Oh, look at that person across the street. They got a Trump sign. They got a Mike Van Meter sign. Yeah, let's buy a house right here." It's a great sorting mechanism to put a sign like that. It's good for your property value.
Yes, but people feel that way. And Vince, here's what I know. That the Republicans that live in Northern Virginia have basically given up over the years, because you're told over and over and over that we can't win. But the fact is that the majority of registered Republicans, and I know this because I've looked at the numbers, actually stay home during elections because they think there's no point in showing up. I'm imploring every person that's listening to me right now that is a conservative, you show up, you mail it in, you do early voting, whatever you got to do, you get your vote in, because the fact is that if we all show up, we might actually be surprised at the offices that we win. The people on the left are demoralized. I don't care what they're telling you. This sugar high they're going through with Harris, it's going to end pretty soon. Don't worry about that.
Well, they're lying about everything else, so why wouldn't they be lying about that?
Absolutely. Oh, and one other thing too, Jerry Connolly will not face it. This is another kind of a telltale thing for me, is he will not debate me. Interestingly enough, we have a debate scheduled for tonight, which he's been told. We've emailed him, we've called him, we've done all that, and he's not going to show up to it. We have two more scheduled after that. And even when we did a parade on the 4th of July, he was supposed to be in the stall next to us, and he was informed by his campaign staff that I was there, and he didn't bother to show up. He will not show up. He will not face me. He will not debate me. It sounds kind of like Harris too, right? And these people will not answer questions from the public regarding their policies, because they're indefensible. What they're hoping is that they will just run this clock out, keep the sugar high going, and people will vote just because it's a feeling. Because the Democrats, it's based on feeling. We vote on facts, they vote on feeling. But if Jerry Connolly was behind all of his policies, to include this about the Arlington National Cemetery. So, Jerry, if you're listening to me right now, meet us tonight, and I would really love to talk to you about this and answer these questions. We'll be fair. I'll be polite with you. But it's disrespectful to the voters that you don't show up and answer questions.
Yeah, and if there was a president, in your case, a congressional debate going on, if I was supposed to be a part of it and I found out that I missed it, I'd be like, it'd be one of those awful dreams, like you missed the exam. You're like, oh, I slept through it. Don't miss it. Here's your big chance. You can go and you can debate Mike Van Meter tonight. Hey, Mike, thank you as always, and give people your website. Let people know where to find you.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, it's vanmeterforvirginia.com, vanmeterforvirginia.com. Folks, get out and vote. We can take this government back. Thanks.
vanmeterforvirginia.com. Thank you very much. That's Mike Van Meter running in the 11th District against Democrat Jerry Connolly. The very first clips of CNN's interview with Kamala Harris are emerging. We'll share some of the audio with you coming up here in a few minutes. Also, there are some rumors going around. Vince, you can't share rumors. Yeah, well, sure I can. Jason Miller from the Trump campaign says that he hears that this thing was only 18 minutes and that CNN might not release the full transcript. There's a part of me that's hoping that, first of all, that's not true, that CNN just actually does a good job. That would be nice. But the other piece is like maybe Jason Miller's trying to force their hand a little bit, little 4D chess here. Oh, they're going to give you a really weak offering tonight. And maybe CNN says, oh, no, that's not true. No, we'll release the full transcript. Whatever. We'll see. We've got some clips coming out right now. We'll share them with you, and we'll take your calls next, all here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Well, good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up from the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts will be with us at 5:30, and you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Well, if you didn't eat lunch today, or maybe you're getting ready for dinner, I've got a treat for you. Here's some word salad. Kamala Harris. And the first answer released by CNN today. Just listen to this setup. Here's Dana Bash. How many Danas go by Dana? Is she the only one? Is she just doing this to annoy us? Dana Bash today. Introducing at the top of this hour, the 4 o'clock hour, the first clips from this interview that's set to air this evening. And just first listen to the way she asks the question and Kamala's roundabout answer.
Change. Generally speaking, how should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Okay, so let's break down what this means. The question ultimately is, why have you flagrantly changed all of your old positions to new ones? Why have you flipped 180 degrees on so many things? You went from I'm banning fracking to I support fracking. You went from I'm against walls to I support walls. You went from I'm going to force everybody onto government health care insurance. Now I'm for private health care insurance existing still. So you went from saying everyone has to get an electric vehicle to no, you can keep your internal combustion engine. This has all happened just in the course of the last few weeks. So the question is, why are you flipping all over the place on these issues? What does this represent? But the way Dana Bash is asking it, let me just say, as someone who's done a lot of interviews, I can detect some things that are going on here. One of them is that she is delivering this question in the most gentle possible way. It's not cutting. It's not drilling down. It's not throwing this in her face, seeing how she handles it. It's slow rolling it. And specifically, she gives her template answers in her question. Is it because you, or is it because you, and then she lays out a series of options, a series of off-ramps that Kamala Harris can climb aboard. And lastly, the length of the question itself is designed to give Kamala Harris lots of time to contemplate her answer before it's finally her turn to flap her gums. And here's what it sounded like.
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and, by extension, the globe.
Just let me point something out. That we did that with the Inflation Reduction Act, she says, as she's talking about what? Climate change. She's talking about government control of energy. That's what she's talking about. So the Inflation Reduction Act, she is now revealing to you in this interview, was a lie. It wasn't about reducing inflation. It was about the Green New Deal, as she just said.
Around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as an example. That value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to...
This is the line they taught her. This is the line. The line that you hear her repeat now 3 times, my values have not changed. My values. So all of my policy prescriptions, my values have not changed. I'm not convinced she has values.
Secure our border. That value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
All right, so that's it. That's the first answer that's popped out of CNN today. There is one other that's being reported on that I don't believe we have audio for. Corey was telling me that no audio has come out for it that we're aware of. It's Yashar Ali has posted this to X. And here's what it says. Vice President Kamala Harris tells Dana Bash that if she wins, she will appoint a Republican to her cabinet. But let me read the actual quote because I don't think that the setup really tells you the story. Quote, I've got 68 days to go with this election, so I'm not putting the cart before the horse. But I think it's really important. I have spent my career inviting diversity of opinion. Come on. Another lie. I think it's important to have people at the table when some of the most important decisions are being made that have different views, different experiences. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican. Who was a Republican? Now, is this a weird turn of phrase because she's speaking about the future? Is it possible she's speaking in past tense? Is it about a future event? It sounds like what she's saying is, I want to bring in somebody who was a Republican at least at some point. Well, who is that person going to be? Who could that be? The answer that jumps to my head immediately is Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. What, are you serious here? That's who you're going to be going along with? The Lincoln Project bozos? That's the guy. Those are the guys you're going to bring in? Okay. Yeah, way to be inclusive. You'd bring in people who violently agree with you on everything. It's not diversity of thought. It's conformity. It's obedience she seeks. I'm going to bring in somebody who was a Republican. So those are the first answers we're getting. Now, that first question, who knows if Dana Bash asked a meaningful follow-up, but that first question we heard from her did not sound promising at all. There is a lot of ground to cover about all of her flips and her flops. In fact, you remember there was a guy, an old television reporter. He was on Fox Business for a time called John Stossel. He just put out I think an instructive segment on social media this week about who the real Kamala Harris is, and because he's litigating the fact that she's been all over the place on a number of issues. I think this is just useful audio. Listen to John Stossel break it down, including you'll hear Kamala Harris's voice in this.
Give every American $2,000 a month. That would have cost $21 trillion. She's also endorsed eliminating private health insurance, having government take it all over. Even CNN anchors seemed puzzled.
So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care.
Now her campaign says she no longer supports entirely government-run health care. She's flip-flopped on other issues.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
No question, she told CNN. But now Harris wants votes in Pennsylvania, where fracking provides jobs. Her campaign now says she won't ban fracking. And they even say Republicans claiming she wanted a fracking ban is false, an obvious attempt to distract. But what's false? That's what she said.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes.
She also wanted to force gun owners to sell their guns to the government.
I support a mandatory buyback program.
Mandatory. But again, today,
a Harris campaign spokesperson tells us that the vice president would no longer require this.
So who is the real Kamala Harris? She used to brag about being a tough prosecutor against even the smallest offenses.
I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
But then when progressives said abolish the police, she flip-flopped. And during the George Floyd riots, when people were looting and setting fires, Harris tweeted, help post bail for those protesting. Now that the policing pendulum has swung back, she again brags about locking people up.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds.
During the 2019 Democratic debate, Tulsi Gabbard pointed out her hypocrisy.
She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
That was true.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like
and I inhale. I did inhale.
Okay.
Another criticism of Harris is that she's nasty to people who work for her.
Incredibly, there's been a 92% turnover on her staff.
Politico called her office abusive, an unhealthy environment. Now, if she were a hard-charging boss who got results, that might be okay. But we know what happened when Biden put her in charge of the border.
More than 302,000 migrants crossed the southern border.
Of course more people crossed. Harris promised them free stuff.
Medicare for all to people who are in this country illegally?
I am opposed to any policy that would deny any human being public education or public health, period.
It is a devastating piece of journalism. It is an excellent package that John Stossel put together. You should find it on his X account today. But there he goes. He's ticking off all of the things that should come up in a CNN interview where they don't. I don't care if this interview is 3 hours long. It's not enough time. If you want to litigate these issues, you have to move quickly. And what we just heard from Dana Bash in that first clip is a very slowly rolled out, gentle question to a woman who has her emotional support running mate sitting next to her, Tim Walz, sitting there just nodding along, just there to help her burn time. That's his job today. And I'm certain that's what they did with him. By the way, he has questions he should answer too. Why did you lie about being a retired command sergeant major? Why did you lie about that? And on and on and on. Why did you pursue putting tampons in the boys' room? In the boys' room. Why'd you do that, Tampon Tim? You don't have to say Tampon Tim if you don't want to, but it would help. It would help drive home the point. Let's go to the phones. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL, and we'll talk to Kevin Roberts from the Heritage Foundation in a bit more detail about everything we're finding out about this Kamala Harris interview. That comes up at 5:30. Let's take Cole in Stafford, line 5. Cole, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Mr. Cole. No Cole? I don't even hear the buzz of the phone. All right, let's see here. I've got Phil calling in. Phil's in Fredericksburg. I'd like to take his call. He's on line 1. Hello, Phil. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Oh, hey, look, Vince, we have a president who doesn't want to show up to honor the sacrifice of our American patriots in the military. We have a vice president who doesn't want to show up to celebrate the honor of these great Americans who sacrificed their lives to protect America. But we have a former president and future president who wants to show up to celebrate these lives of these great Americans who sacrificed everything to protect us. Mm-hmm. And so I think that makes it real easy who you should be voting for.
It is a very helpful way to look at this, isn't it? Just you see, it's like who should I support? Who's being decent here? Who's being indecent? Who's made people's lives better? Who's made people's lives worse? These are very simple equations that we can look at all of this through, and the answers are, I think, abundantly clear, Phil.
The lens is clear.
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. As always, appreciate the call. There's Phil in Fredericksburg. Let me take Marco calling in now from Springfield, Virginia, on line 3. Hello, Marco. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
I hope Trump would listen to John Stossel's little speech there, because that would cover everything. But I was watching Greg Kelly last night, and I was wondering why George Bush would endorse Kamala Harris. And then he pointed out why. Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, and they have a Trump derangement syndrome. It's because Donald Trump fried Jeb Bush in the debate and pointed out that the weapons of mass destruction were never found. We spent over $2 trillion and spent American treasure and blood for a war that should never have happened. So, George, if you're going to endorse her, I have lost all respect for you and your entire family.
It's
this
is
beyond belief.
Yeah, that would. So here's what we know, Marco. Let me just say what we know this week. The media was all getting hot and bothered about the fact that there was 200. This is Axios' headline: more than 200 Bush, McCain, and Romney alums back Harris, and everybody I know who likes Trump laughed out loud at this, as if this was going to be. This is practically an endorsement for Donald Trump. Oh, Bush, McCain, and Romney alums, they all backed Kamala. That's practically a way to tell the American voters, you better vote for Trump unless you want more Bush, McCain, Romney, and Biden.
Yeah. And, Kamala Harris's values haven't changed. To quote Obama, they've evolved. And, that's. I want to hear her say, let me be perfectly clear, because we'll know where that originated from, too.
Yeah. Every time they say that, let me be clear, that doesn't exactly happen, does it? It's clear as mud. Thank you, Marco.
Exactly.
I appreciate the call. Cole has returned. He's on line 5, too, of all places. Hello, Cole. Good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, how's it going, Vince?
Good.
So, yes, the left media does lead their witnesses a lot. So they always provide them the answer or a path to go to make it easy for them to answer. In that response, I don't think she took that bait. She did her own thing. But the problem is that she can change her values all day, but her policies are incongruent to her values. So I think what they're trying to do is just, quote, change the definition and say it's something else without having to actually say she's changed.
Well, the phrase that the campaign trained her on today, which is pretty obvious because she keeps saying it over and over in that one answer, is, my values haven't changed, she said, which leads me to this question. What are your values? I've never, if you were to ask me, write down Kamala Harris's values, what does she believe in? Herself is the answer, Cole. I wouldn't be able to write down some sort of virtue that she believes in. The fact that she is shifting these policies so radically, or at least the presentation of them to the American people, it really tells you everything. This is not the evolution of wisdom. This is not having, been in charge and learning a good lesson and changing as a result. This is holding your finger to the wind and then trying to tell voters what you think they want to hear.
Yeah, they're just preying on the ill-informed, the ignorant that have no idea, and they said, oh, no, she said she's for that. Yay, and they just don't look at her record.
Yeah.
They actually don't, and that's what matters. Is the left, they can say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, if you look at their record, they always vote crazy. And people need to figure that out.
Yep.
Say whatever you want, but you always do crazy.
Yeah.
So stop listening to what they say, watch what they do.
Totally right. It also helps that she sounds crazy. That helps drive home the point. Hey, Cole, thank you very much. Good to talk. There's another element here to the news business broadly. If you're going to share one clip from the interview in order to entice people to watch it, you share the best possible content you can pull from it. You would make it a priority to choose something fantastic. Like, oh man, I got to see the rest of that. That clip we just played for you was garbage. It was utter boring, nonsensical garbage. This does not bode well. Oh my goodness, for this thing tonight. All right. Stay with us. I've got, if anything else happens to pop out of CNN, I'll share it with you. And Kevin Roberts will join us from the Heritage Foundation coming up here in the next hour. And, of course, as always, more of your calls at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.